We are live.
Hey guys, thanks for joining this week. We go live every Saturday, usually 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. However, me and Brian were in Atlanta, and we're going to tell you about the craziness of that for the first Circle of Legends boxing event. So we had to go live 1 hour late. Got an amazing guest, amazing martial artist this week, Keith Vitali. Thanks for joining, Keith.
Oh, wonderful. Glad to be here. It's an honor to be on your show. This is fun.
Yeah, definitely fun. The honor is ours, of course. Brian, let's just, because I wanted to tell Keith this story. Funny enough, Keith is in Atlanta. Unfortunately, we did not get to meet up, but tell him the craziness of just trying to get to that event yesterday.
Man, so it was bad. Somebody up in front of us. Now, one of the flight attendants who's grown up in the city can tell when somebody's on the stuff, And she was in the back saying they need to take that lady off. She's on the stuff. She's wigging out. Her eyes are rolling in her head. She says she's on the stuff. Well, the lady got up as the flight was. We're getting prepared. The taxi getting the wings de-iced. She goes into the bathroom and starts shooting up with heroin apparently, and maybe she OD'd. I don't know. She come out. She was all over the place, crazy. Plopped down in her seat and began to defecate and pee. And then they had a medical, so they start yelling, "We need medical help. Are there any medical professionals?"
Well, real quick, Keith, this happened when the plane was moving. Like we were about to go on the runway, and then everybody started yelling, "We need help! We need help!" And I was like, "Holy crap!" I thought the wing fell off or something. They were
Oh my God.
But then, yeah, they were saying, "Oh, so is anybody like a nurse or a doctor? Somebody's dying over here." And then then they came up to see her.
Yep, and they came up, and then they had to take her out. They took her out, but because she had defecated herself and urinated so much, they had to bring a hazmat. Like these guys in hazmat suits came in, they cleaned it up real quick, and then somebody else had to get drama. And then this one lady jumped up, and we're getting out where we left the terminal. Now we're back out getting de-iced again.
Oh, wait, they have to de-ice the wings again, which took another hour, by the way.
It was awful. And she starts going, "Mother effers, we need to get out of here now. It's my birthday. We need to get up in the air." They're like, "We have to de-ice the ring." She's like, "F you" to the flight attendant. So they started going at her, and they yell. Now the flight attendant comes running back. She's going to call the captain to turn around again. Now everybody starts flipping out. And a bunch of people jumped up and told that woman to shut up, sit down. There's going to be consequences. She sat down, and then the flight attendant hung up. But she said when we get into Atlanta, she's going to get arrested. And when we landed here, they came on for, I guess, making threats on a flight. I don't know how they do it, but they said that it's like a $13,000 fine. Is what the flight attendant said for
crazy. And get this, the lady was obviously trying to save money because we were on Spirit Airlines, and then she ends up with a $13,000 fine.
If that happened to me and I had two of those catastrophes happen, I go, nah, it's bad karma. Something's going to happen to this plane. I probably would have said, get me off this flight as well. That's crazy.
Well, you can say it this way, though, Keith. And I was saying that maybe we were supposed to get there on time and get into a car accident, but that was everything that delayed us, so that didn't happen.
I think things
cool.
do happen for a reason. So we ended up getting to our event. Brian's the brainchild of the Circle of Legends boxing event, by the way, and this was the first one. We ended up getting there beyond fashionably late, many hours late. However, it did turn out great. We met everybody we wanted to meet there in person, had dinner with them. It was amazing. And the flight back couldn't have been better.
Oh, shoot. That's great. I didn't know. I thought if you were still in Atlanta, I was going to invite you out to dinner tonight. So that's all right. We'll catch up another time.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And I'll probably be doing a lot of boxing training out there with Xavier Biggs, because I got some big announcements possibly next week that we could get into on a different show. But this one is all about you. We just wanted to share the craziness. So, buddy of the channel, Antonio says, we're going to go over this comment and question. Master Keith, can you share more about your journey into martial arts, particularly how you got started at the University of South Carolina?
Yeah, I've talked about it before. I was on a track scholarship in Charleston, South Carolina. So my first year in college, and I was a very natural, blessed just blessed runner. I could just run from the time I could walk, and I could run and break records. Martial arts was totally different. It was such a challenge because I had a hard time keeping my balance. Now we see kids jump up and do 5 or 10 little round kicks, but it was hard for me when I first started. But just think about the background. I'm a distance runner. I run the mile and I run cross country. And I have probably more mileage on my shoes than most people have on their cars. And yet I have a great cardiovascular, have strong legs, not knowing any of this. I was just, that's what happens when you run distance. So
Sure.
now I have a good friend of mine. I went to high school with. His name is John Bellinger, and he's a general, man. He's really well-known person in South Carolina. He fought in the Iraq War. He's a fighter pilot. He's real famous here. Won Top Gun. Is one of these kind of guys. Well, he was my high school best friend. He said, "I got something I want to show you called karate." Now, this is the early 70s. I never heard of karate. So he comes over to my house, grabs me at my parents' house, drives me over to the University of South Carolina, and this guy named John Roper. Now, he's a Korean instructor, small class, and they're working out. And I'm so infatuated. I'm blown away. And you'll know more about me now about my passionate personality. I get obsessed about something. I saw the class. I just never seen kicks before. The instructor comes over to me, Roper, and he goes, "If you ever want to transfer to University of South Carolina, I'd like you to take the class and I teach you karate." Badass, hard ass Korean instructor. I mean, just right out of the boot camp mentality. So I love it so much. I go home. I call my track coach up. I drop my scholarship. I go over to the University of South Carolina to admissions. I try to get into the University of South Carolina. I get admitted. 2 weeks later, I'm in school. And now I drop my scholarship. I'm in another school, all because of one class, meeting one person that's changed my life. And so
Wow.
now I'm taking martial arts at the University of South Carolina. I came up with a pretty good idea. After about 2 years, I got my black belt, but I was a white belt for a year. So this thing, I was probably the worst student of all time. And then I just really progressed fast. I went to the university and I talked to them and I said, you got a basketball team and all colleges, universities have basketball, football, or whatever, but you don't have a karate team. I said, I'd like to start one of the first collegiate teams in the United States. And I said, if you wouldn't mind funding it. They said, well, what do you have in mind? I said, well, I'll put USC on my back and I'll bring you more notoriety than your football team. That's what I promise you. And they kind of giggled. They said, all right, go give me a budget. So I put a budget down. I just started naming tournaments and put distance and stuff like that and hotels. I came back in. They said, all right, we'll fund you. And they funded my karate program while I was a student there. It allowed me to start traveling to other places and compete with people. Guess what? You know what I wanted? I just wanted to get laid. I didn't care. I was in college. You just want to have a good time. I put my best friends on the team and we would just travel places. In spite of that, when you train and travel with the best, you get better.
Sure.
So I'm traveling to see Joe Louis, Bill Wallace, Chuck Norris, and these are guys before they're big. This is all in the early 70s. And so I'm staying with these guys and training with them, Jeff Smith and Joe Corley. It goes on and on and on. And next thing you know, I get better. And I didn't even know I got better. It just happened that way. But it kind of changed my life. I was going to school to be an attorney, but that path changed. And then I made it a martial arts career.
Oh, so did you like end up having your own dojos and stuff after college or
Yes,
what?
I did. I came out of the University of South Carolina. I went to work for a guy named Joe Corley. He had a Battle of Atlanta there. And I
Mm,
just knew that'd be a great springboard for me because the battle is a national tournament. And all the top fighters in the nation all came to this one tournament. And then if I was living there and working there, I'd be exposed to that. And I'd have the opportunity to train with these guys. And they did. They all would come in, name anyone famous in the martial arts during the era, and they all came in and trained when they worked with me. Well, I worked
Grandmaster
with
Vic
them.
Moore.
I know I would talk with him because he was before my time, and like Mike Stone, good friend of mine, all these the older generation. Vic Moore would tell me stories how he beat up Bruce Lee, and I go, "Nah, you didn't beat Bruce
Oh,
Lee."
even back
Yes, I
then he
did.
was telling that story. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I beat him up and all these guys. I go, I've been around a long time. I've trained some of the best fighters. I mean, you don't get better than the Bob Walls, Mike Stones, Alan Steens, Roy Kerbins. I mean, it just goes on and on. Chuck Norris. These are the guys I know. And so somebody goes, what I heard, I said, Vic, I'm talking to Vic. I said, Vic, I know I never met Bruce Lee. I said, but maybe you guys did a demonstration. Doesn't mean you beat him in a tournament or you beat him in real life. And he's going around saying that. And I liked Victor, but
Sure.
he goes, he would just tell me stories, said, but just make up stuff. And I go, to each his own.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Brian and I know Grandmaster Vic Moore. We're gonna actually finally see him in person at Alan Goldberg's event, which is gonna be really cool in Atlantic City. Do you ever go to Alan Goldberg's event, by the way?
I've only been one time. I just haven't been in the years. It's Atlantic City. I'm here in Georgia. I have been, and I'll tell you this. I have been awarded more awards than I should. I wish they spread them around to other people. I don't deserve half of the things I probably received. So for me to travel and to get another award, I just don't do it. I'm happy with what I've accomplished. And somebody goes, "Oh, I'll give you another, Hall of Fame award," and I go, "Yeah, that's the last thing I need."
Oh, sure. See, the fans would want to meet you though and take pictures and get your
Yeah,
autograph.
that's
Yeah.
and here's the thing I'm starting to realize that I'm a little older. That I didn't realize that what you just said. I'm not a big movie star. I did some movies and really I was blessed to work with some of the greatest ever, the Jackie Chans and stuff like that. But I I'm amazed at how many people come up to me and daily, not like daily, and text me, email me, or on Facebook and say I've inspired them or I changed their life. And I go, wow, I have no idea. So sometimes I won't even think that in terms like that. I'm not even the most famous person in my house. My wife's more famous than I am, So, but when I hear all of this, and I had this just happen at it was called the Black Creek movie set. I did a movie with
Oh yeah, sure. Cynthia
Cynthia
Rothrock.
Rothrock.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience because so many of the top martial artists were there, but also a lot of people were there that aren't the top martial artists. They all came to be a part of the movie process. And I was just amazed. Just Benny Urquidez and I had a little cameo fight, and people were almost in tears to see that happen. And I'm like, wow, I'm really having an effect on people that I didn't know about. So I try to keep that in mind now when I talk with people.
Oh, for sure. In the movies you were in, they were classics back in the day, like Revenge of the Ninja, for example, like embedded in our memories. We grew up watching. That's when the martial arts, not to say the martial arts aren't magical now, but I think they were a little more magical and mysterious and all of that in the 80s and 90s. So people from my generation, especially, like it's in our head, it's forever in our head, and we just appreciate that. And yeah, we were inspired by those. Before we talk about movies, we got a lot to talk about related to that. I do want to ask this other question from Antonio. He said, Master Keith, winning numerous martial arts tournaments and being ranked the #1 karate fighter in the USA is impressive. Can you highlight a memorable moment from your competitive years?
Hmm.
Oh, that's really good. That's a great question. I've never had that happen before. That question. Um, I have so many I'm proud of, but I think one of the ones the most I fought a guy named William Oliver in Madison Square Garden, and it was a big event. But for a boxer or a martial artist to go to Madison Square Garden in New York and have a sold out arena and walk in and have the place just going crazy. I just remember I didn't take it for granted. I was back in the dressing room and I was just really just taking in all the great boxers in history who have been in those same, rooms. And I'm sitting on just like this and just smiling. I literally come out, and we got this on film. They showed it on TV. They filmed me coming out of the dressing room and I'm smiling. I haven't won yet. It'd been bad if I'd have lost, but I'm smiling. And the reason I'm smiling is I'm so happy. I'm a history major. I love things like this. So I was seeking it, just soaking it all in. I come out, I look at the crowd, I jump in the ring, and I'm going, "Now this is living. Now this is what life's about." And I loved every second of it. So I think that fight, and then to go against a guy who was undefeated, William Oliver, he was their star and he's passed away now, and he was phenomenal. And apparently he didn't get beat a lot, but again, I was the #1 fighter in the country. I'm supposed to win these fights,
Sure.
and so people, it's not a shock to me because I go in with a mindset that I'm going to win this fight. If I don't, I don't. But in my mind, I'm going to win. So when I won that and was shown on TV, it was a big highlight of my career.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So obviously you got a lot of recognition from the martial arts tournaments, the fighting. Is that how you got in the films? Like, did some movie producer reach out to you, or how'd you get in the film world exactly?
Right. And you're not going to believe this. I'm sitting in the martial arts school at Joe Corley schools before I had my own schools. And I'm teaching class and I get a phone call. And it's a girl named Priscilla McDonald had called. So I go over to the phone and I pick it up and I go, "Hi, it's Keith Vitali." She goes, "Hi, this is Priscilla McDonald. I work with, Menachem at Canon Films.
Oh,
Uh,
Menachem
we'd
Golan,
like
yeah.
to, yeah, we'd like to have you, we're gonna, sign you to a movie deal to do a movie called Revenge. I'm sorry, Revenge of
Revenge
the
of the
Ninja."
Ninja, right?
And I went, "Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much." I said, "Tell Mike Geneva to kiss my ass." And I hung up the phone because my best friend is Mike Geneva. This is like something that happens daily in my life with Mike Geneva. I mean, I didn't even think twice. So I go back on the mat, you know, they come and get me a few minutes later. The phone rings again. I go back, pick up the phone. I go, "Hi, Keith." She goes, "I don't know who this Mike Geneva guy is, but if you hang up on me one more time, you're going to lose your movie deal." And I went, "Oh, is this real?" And that's how it happened. And so I flew out there and I did this film with Shogasugi. The good thing is, it was just on another interview that I did recently. I did one, they were doing like the 40th year anniversary of Revenge of the Ninja. And great guys, and asked me to get on the show, and I did it. And they said, "We have something for you you've never seen before." I said, "Sure, what?" And they were doing a documentary on Canon Films at that time. So this camera crew goes in, they go into the studio, and here's Menachem, Priscilla, and another producer sitting at the desk, and they go, "All right, we're going to do this movie with Sho Kosugi, but we need somebody else." And it's the actual footage of them discussing me. And the guy goes, "Oh, I've got this guy. Look at this magazine. He has the magazine. Let's get him, Keith Vitale." And he goes, "Nah, no, no, no. You got to get." And so it's 5 minutes of them talking about me, how I was hired. And finally, he goes, "Okay, bring him down." And I went, "No, I've never seen that footage before." And it's really first class because they were doing a documentary on the life of Menachem, and it just happens to be they were talking about me that day. They were in the office,
Wow.
so that worked out really nice.
Yeah, that's cool. And I remember when I had the late Stephen Lambert on the channel talking about Revenge of the Ninja, because of course he was Silver Master Ninja, and you had a really cool, important part in that film. Now he said, I think your part was actually supposed to be even bigger. Is that true?
Well, it's not so much that it made me bigger. It's just I should have had more scenes in the film. Like, for example, I had a phenomenal fight scene with this big wrestler, and he brought Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, all these famous the Claw, all people of that time to the set. So
Wow.
I'm watching all these famous people, and here is Show and I, and we've got to go to this playground, and then we fight the bad guys.
Hmm.
Stephen Lambert's one of the bad guys. Well, I
Yeah.
have to fight Steven and I have to fight this big wrestler, 6'6", 360 pounds. He picked me up and he taught me all the wrestling techniques. They're so talented. I was shocked how great they were because he would pick me up over his head. He'd break me over his knee. And every time I'd go down, I'd go, "Ah." The director, Sam Schmolek, would go, "Cut, cut. Are you okay?" And I go, "I'm fine. I'm just acting." I went, "This guy is so good. He's throwing me around, but he knows how to take care of me without hurting me." It was so dynamic. We had so many moves. He pinned me up on my neck. He threw me. It went on and on. I couldn't wait to see this. So I go to the theater, couldn't wait to see this 5 minute great fight scene. And it's like 10 seconds. And then I find out later, Show goes there into the editing room and says, "Cut out everything in Keith Vitale. Cut it out."
Wow.
No, 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 cut it out. Because that's Sho Kosugi. I'm not sure he did the wrong thing, but his mentality is different than other lead actors. Lead actors, I know, like Richard Norton, I've worked with, and others, they go, "The more you shine, the more we all shine." And that's the mentality of like Cynthia Rothrock was that way. Not Show at that time. Show was, "No, I don't want anybody shining but me in this film. I don't." And he come to me, goes, "Keith, I like you, but you're not going to do any weapons." He says, "I'm the only one to do weapons." Then he'd have arguments with Sam Furstenberg, the director, going, "Kill Keith off." And he'd go, "No, I'm not killing Keith off." They go, "No, cut his hands off. When you kill him, cut his hands off too." And then Sam would go, "I'm not cutting Keith's hands off." I mean, that would be the kind of arguments they'd have.
Wow.
And we liked each other. But now, when you look at it in hindsight, maybe he did the right thing because he was the star of that film and he shined in that film. So maybe he knew what he was talking about. It's just not my personality or my attitude. If I was going to have a film, I'm not telling any. I want everybody to look good, so the whole film looks better.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. I mean, that makes sense to me. But yeah, he wanted to cut your hands off so you couldn't use weapons, man. So
So, one question I'll ask here, which our buddy Antonio just put out there, was in 1981, you were in Black Belt magazine, like Master Frank. How did that impact your career, and what did it mean to you?
You can see a picture. I got a frame up here. It's my award. I don't have many things in my office, but one of them is the Black Belt Magazine Hall of Fame Award. Now, there's probably 1,000 Black Belt Hall of Fames. It's like boxing, but there's a Hall of Fame for everything. But the most prestigious Hall of Fame is the Black Belt Magazine Hall of Fame. And
Mhm.
that's the one, we got Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Joe. I mean, you got the elite of the elite. As a matter of fact, I'm so proud I'm the only South Carolinian who who's ever been nominated or been elected into the Black Belt Hall of Fame. So it had a major impact on my confidence. So that was really nice.
Oh, for sure. Antonio has the most amazing questions, by the way. He's obviously a huge fan.
And by
Here's
the
an
way, who is you got Hardcore Graveyard? Your
Oh, that's your guy Corey that helps you
Yeah,
run
that's
your Cyclics
Corey
podcast,
Gomez,
right?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, cool guy. Here's a question from Antonio. Transitioning from a full contact fight champion to a successful actor, producer, and writer must have been a unique journey. Can you discuss the challenges and highlights of that transition?
Wow, he sounds like my you know publicist or something. That's pretty cool.
These are like
Hi,
beautifully worded
Antonio.
questions.
Yeah, pretty nice. And here's the thing. This goes back to Revenge of the Ninja. Now, I'm a fighter. You have to understand the mentality of a fighter. I did points and I did full contact. The whole concept is fighting is totally the opposite of movie making. I never want to project emotions in a ring.
Mhm.
Acting, you project emotions in the ring. I mean, on film.
Sure.
So here I am. I don't care how many acting classes I had. I don't care how confident I thought I was. When that director, Revenge of the Ninja, says, "All right, quiet on the set and action," and I'd close down because action, it means fight to me. And in my mind is you're fighting an opponent. If the opponent hits you in the ring, you never project emotion. Somebody hits you with a kick, you never go, "Oh, that hurts." You don't do that. Whereas in film, you totally project. So I had a hard time projecting. At the end of that film, Chuck Norris called me up, and he's another one who started the same way as me. He was a fighter who made the transition. Chuck calls me up and says, "Keith, you did a great job." I said, "Chuck, no, I didn't. I'm so embarrassed." I said, "It was hard for me to project and really act in the film because I kept on getting mixed up. I was so close-minded because of my fighting career." He goes, he had the same exact problems. Chuck Norris, when he walks into a room, this is early in his career, he'd walk in and he was so charismatic. He was so just charming. He would charm your boots off. He was just, but as soon as that director goes, action, his first few films, he was kind of wooden himself. It's just a
Mm.
whole different mentality. And then you get comfortable, more classes, and then you loosen up. It took me a while to loosen up, but I just remember the same thing. That transition was not a smooth transition for me. Every time I did a film, I just remember always that producer going, "Oh, you're much better in this film than you were in your last one. You stunk in your last one. You're much better in this one." I kept on hearing that for every film I ever did.
Yeah, that's
Real quick
cool.
shout out. We got Jay Ruse Theory here. We met him yesterday at the event. So just want to give a shout out real quick.
Yeah, what's up, Jay
Okay.
Nice to
Roos?
meet
Yeah,
you.
it was cool, man, because I knew he was based out in Atlanta. I'm like, dude, you got to come down to the event. And then, of course, our plane got delayed 3 hours, and he's all, "Hey, I'm here. Where are you guys at?" It's like, "Oh, we're coming. Don't worry, man." But yeah, it was cool to see him because I've been talking to him on Instagram for a while. I meet so many cool people because of YouTube and Instagram, just all over the world, and really cool people. So it was nice meeting up with him. And let's another oh, you might have kind of answered this one. Another great question from Antonio. Your filmography includes notable titles like Revenge of the Ninja and Wheels on Mills. How did your martial arts background influence your approach to acting in these films?
Wow. This guy's sharp.
He
Um,
is.
of course, what it did was, number one, it gave me the confidence in the fighting scenes
Okay.
that I never once had a lack of confidence. I knew when Jackie Chan says, Keith, get up and here's what we're doing in this next technique, I could just do it. I was gifted with the martial arts, the kicks and stuff. I had long legs too, so I could spin and jump and do all this, the stuff that they love to see on film. So
Mhm.
I had that. It was only when they got to the acting that I really had to then really concentrate, and I was conscious of it. I was never conscious of my fighting. I would just fight, you know, directly, because what they do is they put the fight sequences together, maybe 5, 6, 8 moves, and the team puts it together. Then they show it to us, whoever I'm fighting, and then they go, "You okay?" I go, "Yeah, I'm fine." They go, "All right, let's go, let's shoot." And then you shoot. You do those 5 or 8 scenes or techniques, maybe 4 times, maybe 50 times. It depends on what you're doing. I'm fighting Sammo Hung and Yong Bao and Wills O'Mills, and I'm fighting 2 of them at one time, and they have weapons. And for some reason, you know, it's just hard to do 50 of them, but I have to do jump spinning kicks and spin kicks and stuff. We did that scene 50 times. Now, if I'm in the ring fighting as a fighter, I can circle, I can move like a boxer, I can fake and feint. When you're doing a movie, you have to give 100% speed and intensity, power and speed at all times. So you try doing that, do this 50 times. It's just hard as fast as you can. Imagine doing jump spinning kicks over and
Oh,
over and ducking weapons and finding your mark and light and a whole bit. So it was much more challenging. But no, it was a challenge, but only a handful of us could do it during that time. And Jackie and those people were telling me, Sammo Hung, going, "You're one of the few people that can fight Hong Kong style." And I love that. I had a Taekwondo Korean background, so they loved my long kicks.
nice. And you had the runner's endurance, of course, to do 50 takes, right? Which was definitely helpful. Hey, Brian, read this question. Ask this one. This is a good one.
Yeah. Is it true that he and Benny the Jet were filming Wheels on Meals? I guess he's saying went out to local, I guess it's Benny the Jet, went out to local dojos in Spain to fight whatever martial artists were within.
Yeah, true story.
Really?
And so Benny and I was training together, and we had a lot of downtime. There's no scripts on these Hong Kong movies. You don't even know when you're going to shoot. You just have to be on call. So sometimes
Mm,
we'd go 3 weeks without a phone call. So we go to the gym, and Benny and I now. I'm the number 6 rated or 5th rated fighter in the world in what they call the lightweight contest. Benny Urquidez is the number 1 fighter in the world in that same weight division. So one day I might have to, get in the ring with Benny Urquidez. So that's no fun. Benny was 60-0 at the time,
wow.
so he's incredible. So anyway, we worked out together. He taught me leg kicks. I didn't do leg kicks. I was a PKA fighter. That
Mhm.
meant we kicked above the waist. Well, Benny was an international fighter. He'd go to Thailand and Japan, and he'd go all over the world where they fought all the, it's almost like MMA today. So I wasn't used to that. So he started training me on how to deflect kicks and how to kick to the legs and all of that. He said, "You're pretty good at it. Now let's go to some local gyms and let's see." Now I'm the number 1 fighter in the country at the time. I'm on like 13 magazines, so I'm pretty well known because then the magazines went all over the world. So
Mm.
the magazines are in Italy and France and Spain. They're all over the place. Benny's the number 1 fighter in the world, full contact. So here's the 2 top number 1s, and we walk into a local gym. You can imagine they go, first of all, they'd be in shock. We'd walk in, and then he'd go, "Keith, you're gonna fight all the guys." He says, "I just want to fight the toughest one. Just say me the toughest one, but you got to fight the rest of them. So I can watch you do the leg kicks." So I'd go through 4 or 5 different people. And I have skinny legs and they're bony, and I'd hurt everybody, just my legs. But I always take care or took care of the people I worked out with. I never knocked them out, if I had to. But I would just work out, just spar. Benny would always get the toughest guy, and the toughest guy to come last. And Benny, maybe 30 seconds into it, Benny would do a left hook and knock him out. And the
Oh,
guy'd be lying on the ground. And we'd leave, and I'd be going, "Oh, we're so sorry. I'm apologizing for Benny knocking your main guy out." And Benny would just giggle. Benny knocks out everybody. He didn't
Can
care.
I ask
oh,
you a
that's
You
quick
know,
nice.
question about that?
yeah.
So, from what I understand, Benny the Jet had never experienced Muay Thai, and he ended up way back when Muay Thai was starting to connect with the kickboxers, right? He fought a Muay Thai guy, and he was getting kicked in the legs, and after that, he realized I got to start learning how to defend kicks. And am I correct? Is that the correct story?
I don't know how it originated, but I know that he perfected it. And there was a whole group of fighters out in the Netherlands that really took it to the next level,
Hmm.
and they became the next leg kicking, champions in of full contact. But Benny, his sister, Blinky, he had Arnold, his brother, all of them were in L.A. They had the Jet Center. I think Chuck Norris went in with the Chuck Jet Center, and they were badass. Man, these guys, it influenced me so much working out with Benny that I said, you know something? I might just focus on martial arts point fighting. I'll leave the full contact to guys like Benny. And really, I made that direction afterwards. And I was just a full point fighter. But point fighting was harder than full contact. And people don't understand that. Oh, you're just a point fighter. I fight as a point fighter. When you're a full contact fighter, you fight like a boxer. You fight your weight class. What's that? 5 pounds difference? Who cares? Same your height, weight. Man, that's easy. As a point fighter, it's like a tennis tournament. You fight, you fight, you fight on the ladder until there's only two left. It's called the Grand Championship match. I'm usually looking at a heavyweight champion, and he's like 6'3" or 5 or 7, about 280. I got to fight that guy 3 rounds or
Wow.
whomever. Guess what? We had sweeps, takedowns, and groin kicks. So this guy could grab my foot, kick me in the groin, can pick me up, body slam me, 3 seconds on the ground to hit me while I'm on the ground. And then people go, oh, point fighting was easy. What are you talking about? I used to do full contact for fun. Full contact would, oh, this is where I get away for my fun. But the point matches I would fight. And I was just talking about it just recently. I had to fight in one tournament. I was fortunate to win Grand Championship. I got on a plane, flew to California that same night. Steve Fisher's tournament had a big national tournament. I fought there. I fought 17 times in 2 days.
Wow.
But again,
Wow.
I have a cardiovascular, like, I was blessed. I mean, literally, I don't know how. I didn't earn it. And I do credit my dad for all of that because we're Italian, and his whole family, my grandfather lived 105, my grandmother lived 108. And we just all have that hand speed, that quick movement. So it was given to me. I didn't do anything for it. I could just run. And when I first ran, I was blessed running. And again, I'm not going to brag on anything about martial arts. I had to work real hard. The first time I ever ran while I was in high school, I was getting ready to get in shape for the baseball team because I played baseball 8 years. I wanted to play professional baseball. So they see me run, and the coach for the track team says, come out and run. So I go, sure. The next day I go run. I don't know anybody. I run with this guy. I'm only 15 years old. I started when I was school and I was 5 in Italy. So
Mhm.
I'm way behind people in height and weight and the whole bit. So I go, yeah, I'll run. So I go run a cross country course. And I come back running with this guy, and the coach has a stopwatch, and he goes, congratulations, you just broke the school record. Oh, by the way, the guy you ran with today is the current state champion for cross country.
Wow.
And I went, I don't care. I want to play baseball. He says, you'll never play baseball again. Guess what? I never played baseball again. I
Mm.
started running, and running took me on a different path. But guess what? It gave me what I need, strong legs, and then it gave me cardiovascular. Because when I'm in that fifth round, and you're fighting, and I'm looking at my opponent sitting down, I know 100% he might be better than me, but I'm in better shape. I can beat Bruce Lee up and his dad and Chuck Norris up and Jackie Chan if they're tired. You've been so tired where you can't pick up your arms. I can beat them all up when they're tired. So my objective when I got in the ring was I'm just going to put pressure and work. And then by the fifth round, I've worn that guy out. And then I'm smiling, going, "Oh, this is nothing. Now I'm ready to fight. Let's fight."
Wow, that's
So,
awesome.
Viking, we got so many good questions here in the thing. I don't know who to go with. Do you want to try Peter, and then we'll go to Antonio's?
Yeah, we'll
We
go
got
back to Antonio.
we got
Okay, yeah,
Keith.
Peters. Keith, can you tell us how you were first approached about working in Blood Brothers? It's a two-part question, by the way. Also, you and Lauren Avedon have such great chemistry in that film. Was Lauren already on board, or was he chosen later?
No, he was on board. He played in Orange Treat No Surrender 2. So he was already there and established. Keith Strandberg is the writer producer. Do you guys know Keith? Have you ever had Keith on the show?
I know of him. Like, I know he
Right.
was with Seasonal Films, King of the Kickboxers, all those films. I know we should
Yeah.
actually get him on for a future
Yeah.
episode, Brian.
He's probably one of the smartest guys I've
Yeah.
ever met in my life. He speaks fluent Chinese and writes the characters fluently as well.
Oh,
Did he
wow.
live over
And
there?
he's right now, huh?
Did he live over there? Did he
No,
spend
no,
time?
no. He
Wow.
majored. Guess what? He went to Overland College and he majored in Chinese. Who does that? And so he learned all that, and then he started working for Seasonal Films and G. And I did a few films with him, and then I broke into producing with him. But we became best friends. He lives in Switzerland now. My wife and I, we fly down to Switzerland, each year and spend some time with him. But anyway,
Oh, cool.
he's right now. I haven't spoken too much, even though he FaceTimed me 2 days ago. He's working with Van Damme, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Kurt McKinney, who did No Retreat, No Surrender 1. They
Yeah.
put a trailer together. They're going to make another version of No Retreat, No Surrender 1. So that's
You
the
know,
next movie coming
you
out
know
for
what's
him.
funny? I've heard about this for a while. The No Retreat, No Surrender reboot, and I heard it was because one of the reasons because Cobra Kai was so popular, right? And they were going to kind of bring No Retreat, No Surrender back. I don't know about a film or a series, but almost make it more of like a mature Cobra Kai. It's so cool if he's got Van Damme involved, because behind the scenes, I get so much from so many people. I've heard about this years ago that they got Kurt McKinney involved, which funny enough, I worked with him on the last Kumite. He's a great guy. I loved hanging out with him, still in phenomenal shape. So, and we got to interview him now that I think about it in a future episode. But I heard they got Kurt involved, and they didn't have Van Damme at the time. They were going to use another pretty well-known martial artist. But if they got Van Damme involved now, that's insane. That's freaking awesome.
Get this. So Keith Strandberg, the reason he FaceTimed me, he sends me a creative artwork. So he sends me an image. I look at it and I go, "What's this?" So Keith being in Switzerland, it's easier to FaceTime each other. So I go, "Keith, I don't even know what this is." It was a creative artwork of Lauren and myself in a shot. It said, "No retreat, no surrender, blood brothers, the boys are back." And Keith goes, "What do you mean the boys are back?" I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do this. Lauren didn't do it, but somebody just created that." But Lauren and I are talking a little bit. We might try to do something together, because it's strange. We did no retreat, no surrender 3, and I'm not sure the splash it had here, but around the world it did really well. And still, it's probably the number one topic of emails is about that movie and the fight scene. And so Lauren, he keeps saying, "Keith, let's do something else." And so I said, "Sure, if you're up to it." It's like when I did Black Creek with Cynthia. I said, "Cynthia, I'll come. I just want to be in one scene, a cameo with Richard Norton." I started my movies as a stuntman in Force 5, and Richard Norton, Ben Ukitas, and all these guys were in it. And I said, "I just want one scene with Richard Norton where I walk in and I bump him shoulder to shoulder. He looks at me, we just walk away. That's my cameo." So she says, "Fine, we'll do that." Later, I do something for her online. She had 5 of us as martial artists. We were teaching online to raise money for her Kickstarter for Black Creek.
Mm-hmm.
So I was one of the instructors. After I taught my 30 minutes, Cynthia came on and she goes, "Everybody, Keith Vitali, thank you so much for teaching that class. We're so excited. And also, I want to announce Keith Vitali's fighting Ben Ukitas in our movie." And I went, "Where did that come about?" I just wanted to bump shoulders. I wasn't even fighting. He said, "Oh, no, you're fighting Ben Ukitas now." And so that's what happened. And then, so I actually went to Arizona and we filmed on location there. And it's probably one of the greatest experiences of my life, because very quickly, I'm in the ring with Benny. It's 2:30 in the morning. It's Arizona desert. It's freezing. The wind's blowing so hard, people can't stand it because it's freezing. And Benny and I are in our Western outfits, cowboy boots. We're in a ring where they filmed Tombstone. Now, I'm a big history major. That's what I majored in history. They made the Tombstone movie there. I'm in the same ring where they did Tombstone. I'm like, "Oh, this is," more than about 98 Westerns were shot there. So I'm in the ring. I'm looking at Benny, and Benny's looking at me. I was with Benny in a movie 30 years earlier. And I look at him and I go, "This is probably one of the happiest moments of my life," because I have a flashback that I'm 30 years younger. And
Wow.
I went, "Fuck, let's just do it." And I remember kicking Benny right off the bat, and I hit him so hard with the front kick, and I flip him backwards. And I wasn't supposed to do that. And Benny lands on the back of his neck, and the director goes, "Cut." And I go, "Benny, you okay?" And he goes, "Benny's the toughest man alive. You could stab him in the eye, and he wouldn't even notice it." And Benny goes, I'm fine. I went, listen, your next couple techniques you got to do, you got to hit me with a spinning kick. Go ahead and hit me. He said, you want me? He says, you really want me to do that? I said, just lay me out. So they put the next sequence together, and action. Benny spins and hits me with a kick, and I fly back. I land on my back, and as I'm lying there, I'm in pain. And I went, I think this is the happiest moment of my life. This is so cool because I'm back where I was 30 years ago, and now here it is again. So it was just a quick moment. It's a small scene, it's a cameo. That's all you'll see me. Probably 15 seconds. I'll be in the movie. It's no big deal. I'm not like one of the big stars or Benny and I, but it's just a great experience.
It's so cool to hear about that and make that appearance. And, just a treat for the fans. Like you said, even if it's 15 seconds, it's a treat because people still recognize you from those movies 30 years ago. To see you again with Benny, especially, would be amazing. It's funny, like how small and interconnected this world is because I talked to the FICORG for Mike Mueller all about that. And he was telling me just like, I mean, he was like surprised as far as like, man, like Keith and Benny are just they still move so good. And I think Mike Muller's around my age, and I was like, yeah, man, I hope me and you could still move like that when we're their age.
I thought so too. But something, Mike Mueller is one of those guys I'm talking about. He was so wonderful, charming, nice. His whole German crew, he brought like 8 people down. And Mike Mueller comes to me and Benny, and he's almost in tears. And I don't even understand that, when I see people, he says, we were behind the Iron Curtain. We were not allowed to see movies. He says, so the curtains, when it comes down, we rushed over and we started buying VHS tapes. One of the first ones we did were these movies you and Benny were in. Now, for me to be working with you, he says, I can't even believe it. He knew every move. When I say move, every technique I've ever done in any of my films. He'd go, Keith, remember when you did your leg this way? And I go, don't even remember that, but it was kind of cool that it started really reaffirming that I got to be more conscious that I have had an impact, a very positive impact, inspired people, and not make light of it because I'm more proud of that than anything. That my legacy is that I was really a nice guy. Nobody has stories about me being a jerk on set, and I took time to talk to a lot of people and spend time with them. Guess what? That pays phenomenal residuals because all these years later, people remember me in a very fond way, which that's all you can ask for in a legacy.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I'm not surprised that Mike Mueller, remembered all those moves because he studied everything. He was telling me, because I worked with him on the last Kumite. He's a fight choreographer on that. And he was telling me, because we had a lot of the legends there, right? Like Billy Blanks, Matthias Hughes. And, he studied all those films you guys were in back in the day. And like, I mean, that's his life. He makes a living as a fight choreographer, but he studied and worked and basically he kind of combines American and Hong Kong style. So very cool, very talented guy, nice guy.
He's
I had a lot of
very
fun hanging
nice
out
and
with him.
very gifted, very nice, and he could do all of it himself.
Yeah, he's
I just
crazy
saw
martial
him.
arts, crazy talented.
Yeah, I think a week, 2 weeks earlier, he was in the Expendables doing a fight scene with Stallone or
He was
something.
in Expendables 4. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, so it was really
Crazy
good, but
stuff.
to have that whole and his whole German team reacted the same way he did. So they'd be around Benny and myself and Richard Norton. And then we had Keith Cook. Oh my gosh. And Don Wilson, Cynthia Rothrock. So that little group, just think of that group, Marcus Taylor, and people like that. And I was just so happy to be a part of all of that. Vincent Sear and Stephen Hayes. I haven't, Stephen
Wow.
Hayes goes
Yeah.
back, for a long time. So it was our version or her version of the Expendables for the martial arts. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was really cool. Speaking of our Marcus Taylor, we had him just a few weeks ago. Of course, he played Suge Knight in the NWA movie.
Right.
A really great actor, great martial artist, which some people may not know. But more people at least will after they see Black Creek, I'm sure. Here's another fun question. How did you end up working on Super Fights for seasonal films in 1995?
Well, that's another Keith Strandberg production with seasonal films. And I really, really enjoyed this. It's a film that didn't get much play here. I asked Keith Strandberg about it one time. I said, how is it that you got a theatrical release for No Retreat Surrender 1, but you didn't by the time for 3 or Super Fights? And he said that the market got saturated because people started turning out so many movies. Don Wilson turned out 30 and 40 and on and on and on, so the market got so saturated that you didn't have the same market that you had earlier. But Superfights was great because there was a young guy named Brandon Gaines, first movie, but he was a genius, is a genius. And he was so bright and he was really a good martial artist. But get this, he has total recall. He memorized every bit of dialogue from Revenge of the Ninja. So Revenge of the Ninja, when he was a kid, like 10 years old, was his favorite movie. So here he is. I'm the bad guy. He's the good guy. Right before we're getting ready to have one of our dramatic fight scenes, he would look at me right before the director would say action, Tony Leung. He'd look at me and start reciting my lines from Revenge of the Ninja. And he'd do all my lines. I go, Brandon, hush, stop it, stop it. And he would giggle. Then we have to get in character, try to kill each other on film. But
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it because the end scene, it was the first time that I didn't co-produce this, but I was associate producer. So I started learning how to produce. I also asked Keith and NG, the owner of Seasonal Films, if I could go with him to the market. We went to Cannes Film Festival and we showed and sold that film. I was there in the ring where all the domestic buyers around the world, what they do is they put you in one auditorium, they show the film. The buyers from around the world then go in the office and decide if they're going to buy that film or not. So they introduced me being there. And then at the end of the film, it's got a dramatic end fight scene. Marcus Taylor knew every one of my fight techniques in that movie. I go, Marcus, how would you know that? He goes, oh, you pick your leg up and you do all this. I went, God, you guys study this stuff. But at the end of that film, I get killed so dramatically, so wonderful, and it's so rhythmical, bop, 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 and the music, and then I'm dead. And they had a standing ovation in the room. And of course, people around the world bought that film. But I just remember going, it's pretty cool the way I got killed in that film. But it was
Keith,
just
I got to say, it's the
all
first
around.
time I've ever heard somebody say their death was so fantastic, sensational.
Oh, let me tell you how bad my death is. In Revenge of the Ninja, I get killed by the ninja. Now, it's one of the highlights of my career because today, I don't care what I've done, people go, oh, yeah, you're in Revenge of the Ninja. I hated to see you die.
Mhm.
Now I kept on thinking for 30 years my acting sucked, right? But and then my observation was this: if my acting sucks so badly, why would people care if I died at the end of that film? You'd be happy that I died. If I was such a bad character, you'd go, please, for the love of God, kill this guy off. But it really bothered people that I got killed. That's the number one thing I get from people where I meet all over the world. They go, oh, I hated to see you die. So apparently I resonated somehow. But my story very quickly is I'm doing my dying scene, and it's Stephen Lambert. It's the one in the mask who's actually playing Sho Kosugi
Sure.
or the bad ninja. Sho played all the parts.
Mhm.
Sho would go put on all the costumes. So I'm sitting there, I get killed, and now I'm dying. I have dying dialogue. Now it's my first major film, my first starring role. Where do you rehearse dying dialogue? So I go down and I recite my lines, and it's awful. Anyway, I saw, and then I die. Well, years later, or not years later, later when I'm punishing my son, Travis, he's only like 10 years old at the time. I'd be at the house. I go, Travis, get your ass over here. You're in trouble now. And Travis would go, hold on, because his favorite movie was Revenge of the Ninja. He goes, hold on. He'd fall on the ground and do my dying dialogue from Revenge of the Ninja. He'd never get mad at him because I'd be laughing the whole time. He would do better than me. He'd be on the ground going,
That's funny. That's funny.
it's
Hey,
pretty cool.
quick question here. Like, what's of all the movies you worked on, like, what's your favorite one and why?
I think Wheels on Mills probably be my favorite, only because I was just overwhelmed by how wonderful it was the experience to work with Sammo Hung, Young Bao, the big three, and Jackie Chan. To
Mhm.
see them in life, how talented they were. It wasn't CGI, it wasn't music or editing that made them good. In person, they're like that. I did Revenge of the Ninja, and I'm going, oh my God, some of these scenes are so bad. Oh, I'm going to be so embarrassed. But when you cut it and you add the music and all that dramatic, oh God, looks good. Wheels on Mills, when I watched Benny Yakitas fight Jackie Chan in person, this close, and they do 4 or 5 moves, cut, and then do another 4 or 5 moves, I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. I was going, that's so sophisticated, so wonderful. Wait till they put music and all the editing and stuff in it. So no, I think that'd have to be my favorite film.
Yeah, it makes sense. That fight between Benny and Jackie, by the way, I mean, that's probably in most people's top 10 best fight scenes on film, period. Amazing stuff. Hey, let's go. There's another really good question from Antonio. Big surprise, right? He's got the best ones. He said, bully proof your child is a significant contribution to child safety. What inspired you to address the issue of bullying, and how do you believe your book has made an impact?
Well, I'm a martial artist first, and so I've always taught self-defense and I always taught the wonderful positive tenets of martial arts. So I would talk about bullying, and I had a theory about bullying that nobody had. To this day, nobody has had it. To this day, I'm the only person to ever have my videos sold in stores all over America. I was featured on Oprah. I was on the Oprah show, all because of my one philosophy that nobody's copied even to this day. And here it is, that most of the time a child's bullied, they're bullied by somebody they know. It could be somebody at school, at the park, or it could be a brother or sister. So I said, so let me teach you in my video. I did a short video and I sold called Self Defense for Kids. Let me teach you how to defend yourself without hurting the other child. Now, you see, without hurting the other child is what got me on Oprah. But hurting the other child's got me all over America. And so I taught real simple moves on how to break out of holes and stuff. But the one I'm proud of, I got books here on my shelf. I've written a lot of the books and a fighting book, tournament book. But I actually did a book. It's called Victor Stops a School Bully. And
Mhm.
I wrote it with my 10-year-old grandson. And I'm sitting down like this and I'm starting to write it. It's a kid's illustrated book, about kids. I just want to get that market. And as I'm writing it, my grandson, Sam, which I love more than life itself, he goes, Granddad, what are you doing? I went, well, I'm writing a book about somebody like you, Sam, 10 years old, going to a new school, how he has to deal with bullies and new school. He goes, Granddad, you're an old man. How do you know anything? I went, I don't. He goes, let me give you my perspective. I said, what do you mean? He says, you don't talk like a 10-year-old. I went, can you sit here and tell me? So he was sat down and we wrote it together. And that book came out. I've now authored a book of my grandson. And I just last year was awarded a really nice award, a proclamation from the state of South Carolina Senate for that book. And so I have a book and an award out that I co-wrote with my grandson. Believe me, life doesn't get any cooler than that.
That is
That's as
awesome.
cool as it gets.
That's really something because I have an 8-year-old son, and I always tell people, everything you need to know about people, you learn when you're in, 5 years old, 6 year old, 7, 8. It's just people go from when you're young, when people are bullying, they tend to be more violent about it when you're younger. But when you get older, it becomes more mental. So they bully you at work, they bully you in relationships, stuff like that. And, teaching young kids how to process that, I think, is so important.
Well, here's the thing too about bullying. Everybody thinks bullying is something physical. The worst bullying is, I think, it's verbal. And I've always told when I used to teach all over the country, I would talk about this, and I go, how often does anybody know or heard of stories where somebody says something so traumatic to you, so hurtful and painful? I said, guess what? You get hit by a bully, that pain lasts maybe an hour, maybe a week if it's really, but when somebody says something so hurtful to you, shameful, it lasts with you your entire life. Your
Mhm.
whole life, you'll remember what that person says. So that kind of bullying is really devastating. So we have to address that as well. So that's why it was really simple for me. When I got on the Oprah show, Oprah, she's clueless. She got me on. She had no idea who I was or whatever. She just knew I had a book about bullying. She introduced me to the audience as somebody who likes to fight. I went, oh, shoot. And then she goes, when I come back from commercial, if you want to ask Keith the question about kids fighting, go. And the audience fought over himself. They were fighting each other to get to the microphone so they could attack me.
Wow.
But I was ready for them. So the first question, we come back from commercial on an Oprah show. She's got her arm around me and she says, Keith believes in kids fighting. And then the lady gets on the microphone. She says, yes, my son got beat up at school. I can't believe you're teaching kids to fight. I went, listen, I'm a parent. I'm a martial arts instructor, but I'm a parent also. I never, ever teach my kids to fight, ever. But I do teach my kids how to defend themselves. And there's
Mhm.
a difference between fighting and defending yourself. I said, by God, my kids, my students are going to know how to defend themselves. And then everybody would start clapping. And I had to really overcome those kind of objections like that. But then their mentality is, oh, martial arts is fighting. Well, bullying is the same thing. I always tell people that when you go to martial arts school, the first thing they do is they teach you how to elbow to the nose, smash the groin, and go for the eyes. You can't teach kids that, because the first person's going to bully them is going to be their big sister, big brother. You can't break your brother's nose and going, I just learned that in my class.
That,
So I always
that's funny,
separated that
Keith.
kind of bullying from others.
It's funny because that's what my son complains about. He has an older sister, and she's like 13, and she's always laying some beatings on him every now and then. But yeah, I got beat up by my sisters when I was little. I say, well, you're learning a lesson in life right now, kid.
Yeah, and he can't, just elbow her in the nose, right? That wouldn't be too good.
No.
They've had some spats where the two of them have gone at it. But yeah.
You know what's a shame these days, and it's nothing that we grew up with for the younger generation now, because Keith had just mentioned the verbal bullying. A kid cannot get away from it now. Like you would get that in school, but now because social media, phones,
Right.
somebody's
Good
Facebook,
point.
Instagram, they would literally get bullied 24 hours a day. So it's got to be a lot harder now. And all these people would, add on to it. Like the bullying's got to be ridiculous for a kid these days because of
Well,
social
look
media.
at you, Viking, man. You got trolls.
Oh, I just got jealous trolls and haters. Like whatever. That
But,
I'm
these
an
are the
adult.
same
They,
people who were in school doing probably horrible things to their, to other students and in life. I'm sure they bully people around them verbally, mentally, you know. So it's something to be said about when you see that. I mean, you see how I am with trolls. I don't personally care, as long as you're paying attention to me, good or bad, I don't care. But I'm pathetic that way, but it is tough for some people to process it. If you haven't, especially younger people haven't hit it. I've lived a hard life, so I've 12 years in the army and being homeless at some points in my life, you see a lot, but when you're a kid, you don't have that armor. I got armor because you go through being, just beaten up by life and people, and then you develop armor. But when you don't have that, you got to teach a kid how to build that armor, teach him how to
Sure,
process.
David, you're right about this. That's a great observation. Is that we used to have face-to-face bullying. You had to deal with it there. Now we've empowered all these people on the internet, and they have the confidence to say anything to you if they don't like you. But guess what? You can't please everybody. People just don't like the way you look or your dress, your politics. They'll find something they hate you about, and then they'll come after you. When they come after you, you just, it's incredible because it's the internet that's empowered them, because there's no consequences for their actions.
Mhm.
If they were in front of you, they wouldn't be saying what they're saying. So it's giving them power on the internet. So bullying, I think, is 1,000 times worse now than it was before.
I got a question, Keith. And guys, just a reminder, check out Keith's podcast, Sidekicks. It's linked in the description. I love the videos you've been doing with Corey, by the way. You had the one talking about Steven Seagal. You had the one talking about Van Damme. Like just really great stuff. Really great stuff.
Thank you.
A lot of similar stuff I do on my channel because I just love that era of the action, the martial arts movies, and just the martial arts in general. So yeah, definitely check that out. But the question that I have, and you may run into this more and more later. So you're like such a positive, optimistic person, which I love because I've been watching your channel, and I could just get that vibe from you, and you never want to badmouth anybody, which is great. The question is, have you run across any like negative comments on your channel? Like I'd say mine's probably 90%, probably 95% positive, but you do get like those like people that just will say the craziest stuff either about me or even the guests that I have, which I think is unfair, but whatever. Those people have their own issues. But have you run across that on your channel at all?
No, and I hope I don't jinx it, because this is probably the single most thing I'm surprised about. When I first started my podcast, my son, who's Travis, he's just great. He's so smart. He says, Dad, you're going to have to get used to people bad mouthing you, saying
Mm.
things that are going to hurt your feelings. You can't go back at them. I said, I know. I'm prepared for it. I haven't had one. It's been the most positive thing I've ever done. Now, if you go look at my movies and go and look at the comments over the last 20, 30 years of them talking about my acting, there's times I want to buy a plane ticket and come visit some of these people. I want to reply, "Bite me, asshole." I mean, what? Oh, you suck. Vitali should be shot. Who said he could?
Wow.
I did get that, but not my podcast. my job, what I'm trying to do is reintroduce all these wonderful martial artists back to a whole new generation of young martial artists who just weren't around during that time, or reintroduce or introduce new ones to them. But the
Mhm.
Richard Nortons, I mean, Richard Norton's my everything. I love Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee and all those, but Richard Norton's just one of the greatest human beings on this planet. And to be able to do a movie with him and hang out with him, I've done a couple movies with him now. But these are the great people that the young martial artists coming up, not only do they not know him or me, they don't know who Chuck Norris. Some don't know who Jackie
That's
Chan.
crazy.
So there's a whole new generation coming up. It's not their fault. They're just not taught. It's just not like it was. And here's my observation too. See if you agree to this one, David, that we had a unique era. It was the martial arts film era back then, and it only lasted for so many years. If you wanted to see a martial arts movie, you had to buy a ticket, go see a martial arts movie to see martial arts techniques. Today, it's different. Every action film has martial arts in it.
Mhm.
And guess what? Tom Cruise, they all do martial arts. Everybody does martial arts. So you don't have to go see a martial arts movie per se. But then that short little era of time in history, if you wanted to see without CGI, if you wanted to go see martial arts, go see Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, or you go see these movies with Don Wilson and all these others. And I'm telling you, it was just a wonderful time that people haven't forgotten, and they wish they could go back to, but never can go back.
Yeah, you can't go back to that, and that's why the martial arts genre was so popular, because you weren't even exposed to it outside of specifically martial arts films. Nowadays, like you mentioned, there are mainstream films, but not only that, you have MMA, you have the UFC. People can see these techniques in real fights, because even though you competed back in the day, those weren't like televised. They weren't like huge events on like Fox or whatever
No,
network.
no.
Yeah, people weren't really exposed to it as much, unfortunately. Here's a really cool question from Jay Roos Theory, by the way. Can a person be a true martial artist if they can't control their emotions?
Well, that's more in line with the MMA fighters of today. Most of them didn't have a martial arts training background. And the training that you get in the martial arts is the first thing you learn is discipline and respect for others. That's part of the tenets of the martial arts.
Hmm.
So you're taught from day one that you're really nothing. You're a white belt. White belt signifies no knowledge. The more knowledge you get, the darker your belts get. Till you get all the way to black as the belts. Now you have knowledge. So back then, you first thing you learned was respect to others. You bowed to show respect to your instructor. You had discipline. You were taught not to lose your temper. Well, the UFC fighters of today, they're not like that. They're not bad people, but they have wrestling backgrounds or whatever backgrounds they had, but they didn't go through what the martial artists did. I just went to the UFC fight last month in Vegas, and Wonder Boy was fighting. Steve Thompson,
No, he's got
and
that
he
traditional
got
martial
into
arts
it.
background. He's great.
Yeah, but he has a martial arts background. He has a
Hmm.
whole following different than a lot of the other fighters
Definitely.
because of his martial arts background. He's respectful, and so that's the kind of fighter that inspires me, and I think will inspire others as well. I
Yeah,
think
Lyoto
that's
Machida's in the same group of,
well,
the
yeah, you're
traditional
right. You're
background.
right.
Yeah.
And
What
you
were you
mind me
saying?
saying something real interesting here, and a lot of people don't. If you look at European arts, right, whether it's boxing, whether it's even sword fighting, everything, kind of they never had, only way back with the Knights in Armor did they have the chivalrous, the Knights Code. But once that was gone, but what Japan and China and other Asian countries kept was the philosophical part, whether they injected Taoism into it, Buddha, way of the warrior. So there was always a philosophy of how to become better. It was a way of life as opposed to just I'm studying a sport. Martial arts was a way of life in the Asian countries, and I think that's the difference. Is a Western mentality is we don't tie the two together anymore. We lost that probably sometime. Once the knights kind of disappeared and they had chivalry and all these codes of conduct. Not that they followed it all the time, but
Mm.
I think most people have to be aware is we're just a cluster of mental conditions, and everybody's got a grouping of mental conditions. And what these arts are doing is trying to tell you how to take what issues you have, whether you're a narcissist, you have sociopathic tendencies, the darker sides of humanity, and how to identify it and then to at least heard it. We can't be perfect, but how to better control it.
That's a good point, and that's why politically it worries about me. Anytime we have to deal with China or the Middle East or whatever, China's so disciplined. Those people, if you watch their videos of their students, watch their videos of their military, they're disciplined. And what we here in America, we're just a conglomerate of so many people from so many different backgrounds that we tend not to have the discipline that some of these countries like Japan have, Asian countries. And I'll tell you what, discipline's the key to everything. You have to have discipline. If I was the president for a day, I would mandate martial arts in every school in the country at a beginning age. Now, and not the martial arts fighting, but the martial arts tenets, respect, leadership training. But the first thing you would do for the first year or two in school would be to learn how to respect your instructor, your teachers, one of each other, and that respect and then discipline. Stand there. And the hardest thing about teaching martial arts, believe it or not, I can teach you how to jump and kick. It's hard to take a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old and tell them stand still and attention and don't move. Don't move. And I'd walk around and go, oh, I hope you don't move. If you move, oh, I'm coming in, and you got to stand like this. It's hard. And then I go, okay, relax. They go, oh, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. But you get a whole class and you bring them to attention and you go, man, ready, attention. And they get stands and they don't move. That's more impressive than anything you'll ever see. And it's that discipline and respect for each other. That's what I wish we had more in our country.
Yeah.
For
Did you
sure.
spend time in Asia?
No.
I love you know everything is saying so true. I lived in Korea for a year. I trained the Korean army. And is that everything is saying discipline? The difference between American troops and Korean, I always said, you tell Koreans 1, 2, 3, they do 1, 2, 3, and they do it with perfect discipline. You tell Americans they'll do 1, 2, 24. You say, well, I never even showed you 24 yet. Why are you doing? We said 1, 2, 3, but they're very methodical and disciplined.
Here's a cool comment from Richard G. He said, I'm a Christian, but I find discipline in Bushido. Great comment. Oh, here's a question.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. Here's another question from Antonio. Master Keith, tell us more about your screenplay on Daniel Boone's life. What drew you to this historical figure, and what can we expect from the film?
Oh yeah, see, I'm a history major, and my hero growing up outside of martial arts when I was a young boy was Daniel Boone. He was frontier person. He's one of the ones that opened up America. Was responsible for doing that. So I love American history, and so I started researching. Believe it or not, I got on motorcycles with Keith Strandberg. We drove over to Pennsylvania. We went to Daniel Boone's birthplace, and I started getting research there with Keith Strandberg. And then I came back. I started buying all the books from 100 years old and older on Daniel Boone, real life stories, bios of Daniel. I bought all those, so I researched it, and then I put a screenplay together. And then I went out and I found great guys. I found a guy named Strant Leopold. He was vice president of Paramount Studios, and he's offered to be my executive producer if I can put this film together. I've got one of Clint Eastwood's daughters who's going to be one of my producers for the film.
Wow.
I've got some of the Grant Gilmore, who's big time director, and he's willing to work on the film. So I've already started putting together elements of it, even though I don't want to be responsible for casting it or anything. I'm going to let somebody like Strand Leopold, who he produced Mission Impossible. He does $100 million films. I'll let him be the one putting the cast together. But that's my dream. I haven't gone there, I haven't put it together, but that's eventually what I want to do. I want to see the life of Daniel Boone put on screen. And it's not so much life because it's kind of fictitious. I wrote the screenplay, but I just wanted to kind of build up American heroes again because we're being torn down. And guess what? Our American heroes are not even being taught in history classes anymore. And I don't even care. It just drives me incredible. We wouldn't have a country without these American frontier people and forefathers who risk their lives for us, and then all of a sudden now we're tearing down statues and calling them names, and I'm like,
Yeah,
nah, I'm not into
that
yeah,
was crazy what was going on. But I want to see this film, and it's very important for it to come out, especially with the timing. So, hopefully
good.
over
Well,
the
thanks for
next
plugging
year,
it. That's nice. Yeah.
I'm buying my ticket. So get that thing made. Here's a question from Shadow Dancer. He says, "Hi all, I have a question to Keith Vitali. You did work on Nash Bridges' TV show in the late 90s. How big was your part? and any memories from the set?
Oh yeah, it's some of the best memories of all time because I've worked on martial arts films. So here's my first ones, not working on the martial arts, but Don Johnson and Cheech and it was wonderful because I was working with a guy named Joe Hess, and I had worked a few films with him before. He's a big American actor, martial artist, 6'7", 300 pounds. But
Oh,
him and I had spent a lot of time together. So we were getting ready to do our first Nash Bridges episode, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He's won an Emmy for stunt coordination, and he's on the show. So he puts together a fight scene for Joe Lewis and I. We're going to fight each other. Don Johnson and Cheech come in the episode, and they sit down. As we're fighting, Don and Cheech bet against each other who's going to win, the big guy or the small guy.
sure.
So anyway, they put the fight sequence together. They film it and then they run it over to Don Johnson, who's the producer, but kind of owns Nash Bridges. He looks at it, hates it, hates everything he saw. Too pretty. So we're back in our hotels in San Francisco. We get a phone call. Got to get back. We're shooting tonight. We've got to redo everything. So Joe Hess and I go back. They put another fight sequence together, and so now it's time to shoot. Here comes Don Johnson, Cheech. They sit down, and Don looks over. He's not happy. He looks over at the stunt coordinator, and he goes, "Listen," he says, "we only got one shot at this." He says, "Guys," he says, "can you just run through it and let me see if I'm gonna like it or not?" Now, Joe Hess had worked with Don Johnson before. He says, "Keith," he whispers, he says, "screw him. Let's just do it full speed." So instead of walking through it, we'll just do it.
Mhm.
We put on the grittiest, meanest, baddest fight scene you've ever seen. He would pick me up. He body slams me into a table because I have a gator back on. He picks me up. I'm jump, spinning kick. Well, anyway, at the end, Don Johnson stands up. He's clapping. Cheech is clapping. The director comes over. He goes, "He hit you 15 times in the face. How'd you take all that?" I said, "He never hit me one time." He goes, "No, no. I was there. I'm in front of you." The director goes, "I'm there. He hit you. I saw him hit you." He never hit me one time. He's missing me. I'm just reacting because we've rehearsed so many times doing this over the years. He goes, "I've never seen anything like it." So from a personal standpoint, to have those guys, and Don Johnson didn't do this all the time. He said, "I want to take pictures of you guys." And we shot it. Everything went well. He says, "I want to take pictures with you." And so he took a bunch of pictures with me. Get this. I get a phone call back a few weeks later. It's Don Johnson's people. He says, "Vitali, we want you to come back, do another episode." Get this. This time you find Stone Cold Steve Austin, the
Mhm.
wrestler. And I said, "Hey, that's great, but you're going to have a big fight scene, but I got some bad news for you." I said, "What?" They said, "Well, you lose in this fight." I went, "Is it in the script?" I said, if it's in the script, I lose." She said, "Oh, you must not be a wrestler." I said, "No, I'm not a wrestler." She said, "Because the wrestlers don't like to lose. And they always put up a fight." I said, "No, no, I'm an actor. I don't even care. Just let me know." So we went back there, and then I shot a whole segment with Steve Austin. And it was one of the best highlights because here's a guy who's just a big, overpowering guy. Gigantic fight scene. We rehearsed and the whole bit. There's 100 people dressed in tux, all there. Don Johnson, the mayor, the real mayor is there. We're sitting in San Francisco. They're in the tent. It's a wedding scene, so everybody's there. I have to break the wedding, come in as the bad guy, and Stone Cold Steve Austin's the good guy. He's a cop.
Mhm.
I have to run and tackle Steve Austin. When I tackle him, we get up and we have our fight. And the director goes, "Action." So I run through the crowd. I dive on Steve Austin, and it's like a cartoon you've seen on Bugs Bunny. Here's Steve Austin. I just lay on the ground. I'm just laying on the ground, almost unconscious. And then Steve goes, "You okay, little buddy?" I went, "You didn't. You got to go with me. You just can't stand it." I ran into a telephone pole. He just stood his ground like that, and I literally just hit him and just fell backwards. And then I said, "I'm fine. Let's do it again." I said, "Can you just do me a favor? Can you kind of go with the fall when I tackle you?" So that was pretty cool. And we did it again. He picks me up over his head and he body slams me into a table that has champagne on it for the wedding ceremony. You can get. I have to land in the middle of it, and they want to see how high they can make the splash go up in the air. And so
Mm.
he picks me up and just bams me into it. And director comes going, "Are you okay? You're hurt." Didn't feel a thing. He said, "Hey, go get dressed. We got to do another take. Go back to your trailer, put another suit on. Let's do it again." But those are great experiences.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I have not seen those episodes. I haven't really seen much. I mean, I'm aware of the show. It's just not something I watched, but I had no
It's off
idea
the air
that
now. Yeah.
you did some fights in there. That's cool. Maybe someone posted those up on YouTube. I want to see those. Oh, let's see. Peter said, "How close are you and Lauren to making a new film together?" He said he posted on his Facebook around 6 weeks ago that you're looking to get backing for a movie, and you wrote to send any fresh ideas to Lauren. Is this something different? This ain't related to the No Retreat, No Surrender stuff, is it?
No, not at all. It's a new thing that Lauren came up with, and Lauren, approached me. She said, "Keith, hey, let's do a film together." And I said, "Well, if you come up with a good format, a good screenplay, and whatever." Ron Paul just sent him some ideas for a film. Ron Hall, not I
Ron
keep saying
Hall.
Ron
Oh,
Paul,
yeah, yeah,
Ron
yeah. He's
Hall.
a great martial artist.
Yeah, so we'll see. But if it happens, it happens. But I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. My wife, I have a beautiful wife. She's president of a mortgage company. I'm a president of my insurance company. So we live on a country club. I play golf. I'm a competitive tennis player. So when somebody says, "Hey, let's do a film," I go, "Yeah, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't." But I like Lauren, and he's really talented. He has some of the best kicks on film I had ever seen.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, king of the kickboxers.
And Billy Blanks, I used to fight Billy. I used to train with him.
Billy Blanks is amazing, man. He's another guy that I got to meet in person and work with on the last Kumite. And this was really such a cool experience for me because, I grew up watching a lot of his movies. Like most people know him as a Taibo guy, but I was watching like Showdown, Talons of the Eagle, Back in Action, TC 2000, literally probably seen all of his movies. Used to go to my local video store back in the 90s. And one of the only things that me and my brother would rent at the time every week were the martial arts films because we would study them and we were training taekwondo at the time. And, like we
Wow.
talked earlier, the only exposure you really got to see martial arts were like the movies. And so anyway, fast forward, I'm doing some we're going over the fight choreography with Mike Muller, and Billy Blanks is hanging out and like giving me tips. I'm like, wow, this is so surreal because Billy Blanks looks amazing on screen, and I used to love his fight scenes, and now I'm gonna work on a movie, and he's like giving me tips. This is just like the coolest thing ever, And he complimented my kicks, so it's like,
See,
I'm like, wow, I got a compliment from Billy Blanks.
when I was the number one fighter in the nation, point fighting, he was fighting at the same time. And Billy would come up to me going, "Keith, can you give me some tips?" And the whole bit. I retired, and then Billy became the number one fighter in the country. And then when Billy opened up a school, he left Boston, opened up a karate school up before he started Taibo in Los Angeles. He invited me down. He said, "Would you come to my grand opening?" So I went down to his grand opening. I was part of that. And I remember him doing a demonstration there. He had one of his 6-foot students stand there, and then he ran and just dove over the 6-foot student, just over the top of him, and did a
Crazy,
flip. And I went, "I can't do that."
crazy
Holy
athletic.
smoke, that guy's gifted.
Yeah, yeah. Man, you mentioned the Jet Center earlier, Benny the Jet's gym, and it's so funny and crazy how many like talented individuals like Billy used to train there. Jeff Langton, I don't know if you know Jeff Langton, but he was even telling me the story on when he took a bunch of guys in his van, including Billy Blanks, Thunderwolf, bunch of guys, and they drove down to Frank Dukes' gym for the audition of Lionheart. And most of them ended up getting parts in the movie Lionheart with Van Damme. Oh, and Van Damme was even training at the Jet Center back in the day.
Anybody who was anybody. When I'd go into the Jet Center, it'd be like a who's who. You just look
Yeah,
around. I remember just Benny and I went to train together after the film we did, and I was sitting. We went into the whirlpool. He had a Japanese kind of theme running through the whole thing. It was ahead of its time. An earthquake came in and destroyed it. But during that time, it was so wonderful. But I remember being in the whirlpool with him. We were sitting and I had Bill Wallace, who was a world champion. I had Joe Louis, who was a world champion. I had Blinky Rodriguez and Benny Urquidez and myself. I was the only Taekwondo guy. I'm Korean. They're all Japanese stylists, and they're all giving me crap. And I'm sitting in the whirlpool going, "Oh, you guys suck. All you got, giving it back to them back and forth." But it's just a cool atmosphere to walk in there and to see all these different personalities. Chuck, no, everybody used to go in there, and you had to be tough to get in that gym. That's not a gym. If you run in your mouth, you're not a fighter. You don't want to go in that gym. That's the real McCoy. Have you ever seen The Warrior? It kind of remind me of The Warrior. where you walk into the one where Tom Hardy stars in that movie, The Warrior.
Oh,
Have you
I
ever seen that?
love that movie. That is a
It's
great
my
martial
favorite.
arts film, about 20
It's my
years old
favorite
now.
emotional movie for
Yeah.
martial arts. I just love it. And I love Tom Hardy. And Richard Norton told me a lot of stories where he would train Tom Hardy about MMA and the whole bit. Now, Tom Hardy's doing MMA. So
Mhm.
to see him in that film, but it's the kind of gym like they have it in that film where you walk in that gym, there's champions in there. You don't walk in that gym, unless you got your act together. And that's how the Jet Center was.
Wow. Yeah, and surrounding yourself with those individuals are only going to make you better. That's amazing. There's thanks Technotronic Boy for the $10 donation. We really appreciate that when we do these lives, guys. That does help a lot. I got another great question from Antonio here. He said, with your background in insurance, how do you perceive the intersection between martial arts and risk management? And has this influenced your approach to both?
Holy smoke! No, not at all. That question's like from Mars. That's incredible.
This guy's
No,
amazing.
I actually, you know, insurance is like an evil that you have to have, and my wife literally finds mortgages for people that to buy homes.
Mhm.
There's nothing more gratifying than that. So every day she wakes up and she goes, "Wow, I just put another person in a home. I'm the president of a company, and this is wonderful." When you buy your first home or a second home or whatever, it's a wonderful time in your life. But when you get your car insurance or home insurance and your rates go up, you hate me first. It's my insurance company. So you call me up. So daily, all I do is pick up the phone going, yes, I know your rates went up. So it's a hard business because it's not a gratifying business. Now you make money and it's, wonderful, but it's
Mhm.
nothing where I wake up every day going, I can't wait to get to the office and hear another person complain about their rates.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see. Technotronic Boy, Master Vitali. Who who was your inspiration to become a martial artist and an action star?
I think my era, Bruce Lee had to be. Because when I would started taking karate, Bruce Lee just came out on the scene and his movie opened up while I was still just taking. And people don't realize I can't think of anyone, Taylor Swift comes close, but not even close to who Bruce Lee was. Everybody on the planet knew who Bruce Lee was. Everybody on the planet. I don't care if you're in what country. I don't care if you're Iran or Africa, Nigeria or America. You go Bruce Lee, and there'd be somebody from the jungle going, "Oh, I love his movies." That's the impact Bruce Lee had. When he died, he had 1 million people at his funeral. Everything was about Bruce Lee. Today, it's spread among 1,000 celebrities. Taylor Swift has Swifties. The Beatles had the Beatles.
Mhm.
But nobody, I don't think anyone can come close to who Bruce Lee was. He was just bigger than life. I never had a chance to meet him. I did get to spend time in the ring with Muhammad Ali, and that was
Oh,
nice.
wow.
But not with Bruce Lee. That would have been number one on my bucket list.
Well, Muhammad Ali, funny enough, is another name that I was going to mention. That larger than life, everybody knows who he
Yeah.
is.
He would be as big
Respect
as
him.
I'd put him in the same category as Bruce Lee. Muhammad Ali and Bruce Lee in the same because everybody knows Muhammad Ali's name.
Yeah, yeah,
Keith
yeah. Now,
Vitali.
we got to talk real quick, Brian. You were in the ring with Muhammad Ali. Okay, so what was going on? What was this experience? What were you guys doing?
Get this. I'm fighting a full contact match. I'm in Atlanta. So Joe Corley's a promoter and he brought Muhammad Ali in to do a demonstration, to do a little fight with somebody. It's past his career. Well, he comes into the my dressing room. And I just remember he came in there and I got my stuff on. He said, "Yeah, throw a few techniques at me." And I'm not even being facetious. Here's what he does. I would throw a kick and he'd reach out like this and tap me in the head. I would do a move, he'd tap me in the head. I would do a move, he would just tap me in the head. In other words, if you put a jab or a punch, he would have killed me. But
Mm,
so remember, whatever I did, he just stood like this and reached out and tapped me in the middle of it. And my
mm,
first impression was he was about this thick. I kept staring at him going, the girth he has in person is bigger than you can ever imagine. That's how he did the rope-a-dope because he was so thick that
mm.
he could take all those punches. And he would just sit there and take him and take him and take him. And I'm like going, no wonder. And so I got some photos with him and I got a chance to, put my gloves on and throw stuff with him. And that's pretty cool. That doesn't happen every day.
No, that's awesome, man. Oh, were you going to say something, Brian?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, we had somebody else on, and they made a good point about Bruce Lee. What made him so great was he was playing himself, was not a character. It was what the essence on that screen was who he was, and he was expressing his philosophy in these movies. He was expressing his art, Jeet Kune Do, but it was him. So
Right.
I think that came through so incredibly when you watched him. It was so realistic, and yeah, I think he gave us all goosebumps that first time we saw him.
You know, and here's the thing too. The director was so good at that. I didn't like the director. I did a movie with him at the same time. What's the director's name? From Enter the Dragon. It's
Robert
been blank.
Klaus?
But anyway, yeah, Robert Klaus. I
Mhm.
did Force 5 with him, and he was a jerk on the set with people. I
Oh,
was just a stuntman. But I remember my first film walking around going, "Oh, I don't want to, I don't even think I want to be an actor the way he's treating people." He just
mm,
wasn't a very pleasant person. So I didn't say a word, but it's a great opportunity to work with him. But he knew how to shoot Bruce Lee in a way that they would keep the camera on him and show his facial expressions. And here's the thing, he's fighting Jackie Chan in one Jackie Chan's first movies,
sure.
and it's in the scene at the bottom, in the basement, and the
Mhm.
jail breaks out. He grabs Jackie Chan, and then he breaks his neck. Jackie Chan drops to the ground, but the camera stays on Bruce Lee. It's not a two shot, so you're not just they didn't care about the fight itself. They really cared more about creating an image of Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee, all this facial gyration, he'd go, ah, he'd make all the, but anyway, that was Bruce Lee. So
Sure.
you got to create, they created a star of just those facial expressions and close-ups. A lot of American directors don't know that. Or they don't take advantage of the same thing that Robert Klaus was doing years earlier with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's facial expressions were just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more memorable. I like all the stuff like in between the fights. You get the fights, but all
That's
that
it.
stuff in between adds that character and that personality, which is
Yeah, I
great.
should have said that better, but it's between that's exactly what I meant to say. It's the little things between, not so much the kicks or the punches. They're all good, but
Mhm.
everybody can kick and punch. But what's the little things in between, like the Clint Eastwood movies, where they go back and forth looking at one guy and the bad guy and the good guy. That creates tension, and that's how you make a movie. Those certainly on movies were really good.
Yeah, for sure. I think Van Damme did it the best outside of Bruce Lee. By the way, they really captured that. Sheldon Lettich probably had a lot to do with that. Great director working with Van Damme in some of those early films. Here's another
Plus, he's
question from.
good too. Yeah, he was
Oh yeah,
wonderful too. Van
he's
Damme.
he's amazing.
I would have traded bodies with that guy any day of the week, and looks, that guy was just
Yeah,
wonderful.
he had the movie star look. That's for sure,
Yeah,
man.
that's for sure.
Ripped superhero body. Antonio question here. In your martial arts journey, you've encountered various figures, including Master Frank Dukes. Can you share any experiences or insights gained from interacting with them, and how has he influenced you?
Very little. I know of him. I've spoken with him a couple of times. He's texted me a few times. Believe it or not, I was friends with his wife before he met his wife. And she's from Texas. She's a paralegal, and she's brilliant and beautiful, and I really got along with
Oh,
her. She's
Kira.
so
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. So that's how and then apparently she must have spoken to her husband about approaching me, and I had very little to do because I just mentioned I fought 17 times in 2 days,
Sure.
and I was worn out. And I'm probably as good a shape as anybody in the world at that time. When somebody says they fought 56 or 60 full contact matches in 1 day or something, I don't buy it. I just stay away from it.
Mm.
Could he have done it? Yeah, you could put a man on the moon. I don't know. But when somebody, I just don't know. When somebody's saying, I'm such good friends with Don Wilson, and Don Wilson has a totally different opinion, and I kind of tend to believe more with Don Wilson. Now Frank Dukes, he's very talented, I'm sure, because that movie, he inspired a lot of people with that first movie. That was a great movie, and I know he's a good. I don't know much about him personally. I just don't know a lot of things. When before the internet, you can make a lot of claims, and then the internet came out, and then there was problems trying to justify the claims you made. I don't know. That's one that's Pandora's box right there, getting in the middle between those two.
Yeah, Don's very strongly opinionated on Frank. It's interesting when you brought up, we could land a man on the moon. Like people even question that. Like, did we really go to the moon or not? You know, or was it just like a set? You know, so people even question that. Let's see what else.
No,
People even
the world's
question
crazy
whether you
right now.
got your bicep operated on. So,
Oh, yeah. Like people question if I, tore my bicep when I was training out here months ago in Philly for boxing, like, oh, you faked your injury because you want to get out of the fight you're supposed to have. I'm like, I really want to have that fight. I did. This was a minor setback, but people just question everything, man. It's ridiculous. Here's a question from Results May Vary. How do you feel, Keith Vitali, about Dolph Lundgren as an action martial arts star in classics such as Showdown in Little Tokyo?
I like him a lot. He was the perfect prototype in Rocky. What was it, 3 or 4? You know what?
Yep.
Yeah, 4. You couldn't have had a better Russian in the world. He was so perfect, almost like a Terminator kind of a role. And he was a perfect good person. He's another person with a gigantic, perfect build. He's got the looks. He's got the technique. So, I was so envious because I was a martial arts fighter who made the transition to movies. I wasn't trained as an actor, so I didn't have all the things that you should have. I should have more acrobatic technique. I should be able to do flips and jumps and maybe languages, weapons. No, all I could do was fight. Now the great actors come in and they can do it all. And the more you bring to the table, the easier it is for you to get a role. But I remember working a movie with Gary Daniels, and Gary Daniels hated to be doubled. He was so fantastic. He didn't need to be doubled.
Mm.
Me personally, when the director would go, all right, bring in the double in for Keith, I'd go, thank God, because they want me to do it like a pirouette, 3 spins in the air when I get hit and land on the edge of a desk. And I
Oh,
go,
wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, I can't do that. So the double would do that for me. But it's pretty nice. You have to watch the films to say, is it Vitali or not? If you look close enough, you can see if it's me or not. But there's a lot of things I just couldn't do. And so, but I could kick both sides. I could jump and spin, but
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even do a kip up at first. And Tony the Young in one of the movies, he says, okay, you have a cast. And I really broke my arm. So I had a cast on and I have a gun in this hand. And I get knocked on the ground. He says, okay, the next segment, kip up and then do your spin. I went, kip up? What's a kip up? He goes, you don't know what a kip up is? I went, no. He says, okay, you got 5 minutes to learn. And he brought his crew over. They're there anyway. And he says, teach Keith how to do a kip. So they had to work on it with no hands. I learned how to pop up in the scene and then do it. But these people now breaking into films, you got to know all that. You got to be able to, the more you bring to the table, the better chance you have to get a role. And Dolph Lundgren, imagine, good looking, tall, strong, can kick, can do it all. Yeah, he's wonderful.
Great Kyokushin background. Amazing. Yeah. Did you break your arm working on a film, by the way, when you
Did
mentioned the
Lauren
broken?
Avedon 2 days before we shot. Lauren does. We're at somebody's gym, John Pravat's gym in Florida, and there's a big hanging bat. And NG, who owns Seasonal Films, is there. He flew in from Hong Kong. He wanted to see Lauren and I throw some techniques. So we did all of our stuff. Everything looked good. We're getting ready to leave, and Lauren, he started showing off. He does a flying sidekick, 2 legs, hits the top of the bag. Well, the guy was holding the bag, hits it and bounces off. Of course, he looks at me. I can do that. I can jump. So I ran, flew. I did a flying sidekick. I remember it like it was yesterday. I went, man, this was looking good. Both legs up in the air, about 6 foot tall. I hit the bag. I looked over. Nobody's holding the bag. The bag swung, and I hit the ground, concrete, broke
Ooh.
my wrist, and my bone popped out.
Ooh.
They went to surgery. They wrapped it up, and then they decided to keep me in the film. Thank goodness Keith and Lauren both pushed hard to keep me in the film.
Wow. That's a bad injury. But you still got to work on the film. That's cool. You almost broke your arm yesterday, Brian. Remember on the way to the airport?
I can brag a little bit here. So, Viking can tell you I hit really hard. So, I'm like
Ridiculously hard.
legendary from. Yeah, we're at the event now. Usually the boxing would say have me hit the bag to show how hard I hit, but I've never wrapped my wrist ever in many days. But I remember I did McAwarry training, and you could see my knuckles.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's that hitting that board and the one that moves back and forth. But anyways, I slipped. I slipped Both my feet went up in the air. I mean, up in the air above my head. I went backwards. The only thing I could land on was the edge of this wrist is what I slammed. And man, at first it hurt. I said, I busted my wrist. When I got up, man, I could feel it was all right. And I was telling him I contributed from hitting the bag all those years without ever wearing without ever wrapping my wrist. So it finally paid off. I'll probably get arthritis from it one day.
Wow. Yeah, that was on the way to the airport. But that going to that event, the first one for Circle Legends, by the way, it was so important. And it would have sucked had you broke your wrist or your arm. I would have tried to make you go anyway, but then that flight would have got delayed 3 hours too. So that would have been a horrible day.
Actually, the worst part is they wanted me to hit the bag, so I had to put old gloves on, and I have like OCD about the smells and stuff. And you know how bad them boxing gloves get. And these things have been worn by fighters for years. They're the club gloves. I put them on. I hit the bag. When I got done, he saw me. I kept running in the bathroom, re-washing my hands to get that smell off.
Yeah.
There's all fighters know no worse smell than boxing gloves. And by the way, everybody, you can wash your boxing gloves. Wash them. I did it for you. I've had pairs I've washed for a year, and you can put them over your floor heater or air conditioner. They'll dry out. So wash them so you don't stink up the gym.
Yeah, but guess what? When you're in Madison Square Garden and you're in locker rooms, you want that smell. You want that environment, that aroma. I just sat there just eating it up, going, "Oh my gosh!" Just think of the great fighters that sat right where I'm sitting right now.
Well, that could be one of
that
their
goes
old
through my mind.
lingering smells, right? One of their old lingering smells. Well, that's something to be said in the old school gyms. The smells, the atmosphere. It is all a part of it.
Cool question here from Peter. He said, "What was Jackie Chan's reaction to you sidekicking him so hard over and hang on, this comment moved over and over again on Wheels on Mills at Samo's insistence? Did Jackie say anything to you later about that?"
No, but he was upset. And Vinny Urquidez is fighting Jackie, and as they're doing it, Jackie's supposed to do a spinning kick or something. I'm supposed to come into the fight and hit Jackie with a sidekick. My podcast is named Sidekick. I'm a sidekicker. I had broken 50-something people's ribs as a white belt when I was first coming up because gear had been invented. I perfected the sidekick, and I'm known for my sidekick. So here it is. I get ready. Samo's behind the camera with the cinematographer. He's the director. And we got this big fight scene. Raymond Chow, who's famous movie producer, he did all the Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan films. He flew in from Hong Kong to come watch this. Must be 100 people watching because, believe it or not, they bus people in from Japan. The Japanese are in buses and they're out watching it. So hundreds of people from Japan are watching. So here's this big fight scene between Jackie Chan and myself and Ben Urquidez. And I'm right side forward, and I'm as confident as you've ever seen because I'm a sidekicker. And the last second, Sammo Hung goes, he says, "Kei Fu." I said, "What?" He goes, "You ready?" I said, "I'm ready." He goes, "Change sides." I went, "Change sides? Oh, you don't want me on my left side. I can sidekick you on the left side, but I don't have the control my left side." He said, "Okay, no problem. I'll change my set. I'll change everything. I'll change everything just for you." I went, "No, no." I knew I was pissing him off. I went, "No, no," because you don't say no to these guys. So I was learning. And I went, "Nope, I'm fine. I can do it left side. I'm fine." And ready, action. And I hit him full power with the sidekick. He lands on the ground. And remember now, Jackie is not a fighter. He's an actor. He went to the schools in China to learn how to be an actor. He can paint, draw, fight, fence. He can do it all. He projects and cries. He gets hit in the arm, fingers. He's in tears. Anyway, he's on the ground. His whole team runs to him because he's injured. Raymond Chow comes down, does this to me. I went, I'm fired. I knew I was fired first day, And I'm like, oh my God, this is tough. And I look over at Sammo Hung. He's behind the camera. And here's what he says. "Kei Fu." And I look at him. I knew he was going to say you're fired. He goes, "More power." When he says more power, Jackie Chan's on the ground, pops his head up and looks at Sammo because they had tension all the time. And he looks at him like that. And I went, oh God, we got to do this again. 30 minutes go by because I think I've caved his chest in. Again, let's do it again. Let's do it again. All 8 times. I caved his chest in with my sidekick. He'd be on the ground crying, just rolling in pain. And each time, Sammo Hung goes, more power. The last time I messed up, I hit him in the throat. When I
Ooh.
hit him in the throat, full power, he went back like this, and I broke character. I went to help him because I knew I crushed his larynx. And then they went, stop, stop. That's the only time Jackie Chan ever got mad at me. He was on the ground and he goes, what'd you do that for? He says, I took all this pain for you. But you don't ever break. You're supposed to stay in there until the director says cut. And Samuel goes, he says, Keith, he calls me K-Fu. That's the shot we're going to use to when you hurt him. That's what we're going to put in. Don't break character. So I went, God, I learned my lesson. From that scene, Jackie, we were fine after that. But then Samuel comes to me, he says, I like your kick. He says, I'm going to create a scene just for you.
Hmm.
I said, fine. So he brings over I thought it was a Volkswagen, but it was like you know, ambulance is what it was. And then he writes a scene where three guys, this girl and a couple guys get out of the ambulance. I'm the bad guy. I'm sitting there. I'm supposed to kick one of them back into the ambulance. He said, I want to showcase your power. I said, fine, let's do it. So the first guy comes out, Yong Bao. I flip him. So I rehearse. That's fine. The second guy comes out. He's a stuntman. He comes out. Through the interpreter, I said, tell him to go on 1 foot, kind of take some weight off so I can pick him up. He says, no problem, no problem. So Samuel goes, shoot. So I do it. I throw Yong Bao. I slide up. I hit this guy with a side kick. He flies back, literally lands up onto it, hits the back of his neck. Samuel wanted to see if I could make the back of the uh, station wagon, whatever it was. He wanted to see if I could rock it. So I hit him so hard, he hits the back. Boom, he's out. So he's lying on the ground. Samuel goes, good, 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 cut, cut, good. I walk away, and Samuel goes, Keifu, where you going? I went, he's dead because he's literally unconscious. I went, I can't do it anymore. He goes, oh, no, no, more Chinese. And he had Chinese stuntmen lined up. And one at a time, he had me sidekick each of them and see if I could hit in the back of the ambulance and make the ambulance kind of rock. That's that's the kind of, there's no SAG in Barcelona and in Europe when you do these movies. They're pretty
Keith,
vicious.
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How do you I studied Goju karate and different kung fu's, and how do you throw that sidekick? I always had a hard time not hitting the bag, but hitting somebody with that. How do you penetrate with it when somebody's moving? I always had a hard time. But how did you?
It's your style. Yeah, it's the way your style teaches you to set up your kick. And there's a way to do it. In a way, what you got to do is you got to get your heel, and your heel comes up on a straight line between you and the opponent. And you can't chamber. So you take the chamber away. But you taught every martial arts, I don't care what you're taking from, what style it is. They teach you to chamber first and then execute it. And my style, what I did was I came up with this because I had to fight so often. Every time I picked my leg up, my knee up, somebody would hit me. So I said, screw with picking my knee up. I'm going to pick my heel up and get it directly between them and my opponent. And then when I picked my heel up, then I'd shoot it out. And then I'd have it only with my heel.
Let
And
me ask
before
you about
long,
that because that's
yeah,
interesting. Because I do that. I learned that from Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee talked about a non-chamber kick, and he got it from Muay Thai or something where he would just go in a lateral, lift the foot up, and toss it out there. Did that influence you at all?
yes, that's it. Not only that, my instructor, John Roper, has spent time with Bruce Lee. So that's where he
Wow.
came back and taught me. I perfected that sidekick. And then this is pre-gear. So I'm on the University of South Carolina. I'm a white belt. And we had just universities. We also had a lot of the merchant marines. We had people from Fort Jackson would come in from all over the world, and they'd come into the karate school and they'd want to fight. Well, Roper would always say the same thing. He was just a maniac. He was really half crazy. He hated everybody. He go Vitali, and I had to go, sir. He said, fight him. White belt, no gear, and here's this guy 230 pounds. I'm 150 pounds, and I have to fight this guy full power or die. And eventually, I learned how to throw a sidekick in a way to stop him. And then I perfected it, where I can hit you with a sidekick. And then I had so many ways of doing it, but I had broken, like I said, 52, 53 people's ribs with that sidekick, all because I'd get my heel up first and then shoot it out. And most of the time I broke somebody's ribs, I didn't even throw the kick out. I was just picking my heel up, but they're coming so fast, they ran into my heel. But
Wow.
it was that sidekick. But no matter where I tour, go around the world, I do demonstrations, and I go, why aren't you? So I fight 30, 40, 50 people. and they pay, and I'd fight them one at a time. I said, what do you think the one thing is? The only reason why you guys aren't beating me up right now, what is it? Is it my round kick or my punch or my looks or my spin kicks? And they always say the same thing. It's your sidekick. The sidekick stops everything. Without a sidekick, you're defenseless, because I can get through a round kick. It's circular. I can get through anything. A punch I can grab, but the sidekick that hits you hip or here, it can break your ribs. And I mean, breaking ribs like that. So the sidekick's what stops everybody. So when I get in the ring and I'd fight all weight classes. They knew I had a sidekick. And if you made one mistake, I'm going to hit you with that sidekick and you're going to pay for it.
Nice. You know who else has an amazing sidekick who stops so many people? Don the Dragon Wilson. And last time I was in California, he taught me his sidekick, which is actually similar to what you described. I actually made a YouTube video about it. But yeah, man, he's deadly with those sidekicks.
And I saw you working out with Don. Yeah, Don's such a great guy.
I love Don. He's great. Have you worked out with him much? Have you trained much with Don Wilson?
No, but guess what? We spent a week together in Berlin like 5 years ago. And we went to one of these film comps together. And Don and I would hang out and just talk about everything. If you know Don will, you have to say, Don, please go away. I have to go to bed. No. I got another story for you.
One kick you got to take up is that one. What do you think about Joe Rogan's kick?
He's good.
That one
like Joe Rogan. He's
the bag.
Really good.
Wow.
He's powerful too. People don't realize how powerful Joe Rogan is. At the UFC fights, I saw him. He came in and, he was interviewing the fighters. So it was the first time to be at an event where I could actually I was on the floor and could see everybody face to face. It was a really nice event.
Hey, let's get one more here, because we're coming in on 2 hours. This conversation is so great, covered so much. And I know you kind of recently covered this on your podcast. So again, guys, check out Sidekicks podcast, linked in the description below. You get a lot more Keith Vitali. I do want to get this on my show, though, and I know you covered this recently on yours. Lark Bark said, I have to ask this question, but Keith Vitali, what are your thoughts on Steven Seagal?
I love him. Now, personally, I don't think I get along with him. There's a lot of actors that I love to see. I probably politically don't get along with them. They would hate me personally. But Steven Seagal on film is wonderful. Let me tell you why. Because there's consequences for every action he makes. When I was with Gary Daniels, he'd complain the whole time, and I didn't blame him, because he would say, can I just hit somebody and they fall on the ground and stay on the ground? Sure. And Tony Leung, the fight choreographer, says no. He says, you only care about American movies. The world cares about aesthetic beauty. We want to see the beauty techniques. So here's Gary Daniels doing 30 swing kicks, hitting the guy, bounces up, like Super Bowls, right? So it really perceives that the fighter doesn't have that kind of power. Steven Seagal walks in, looks at you, takes your wrist, and you hear the bones breaking at the same time. And then the person falls to the ground. Well, I love that. Most people do. I like that when you hit somebody, if you're powerful, it's projected. I like power on screen.
Yeah.
And you don't have it when you just see that aesthetic beauty. Jackie Chan can throw 30 kicks, but the guy keeps backing up every time. So how powerful is somebody if you hit him with a spinning kick and it just bounces back up? When Steven Seagal hits you, you die. It'd be a flicker, but you're dead. So personally, his movies, I really liked. His acting style, I didn't care. I thought it was pretty cool. So I'm a big Steven Seagal fan, but there's a lot of things I don't like him personally. I hear he hurts his stunt people, and that's a no-no. I mean, I know this for a fact, because I had stunt guys from his set leave his set, come over to my set, and do films with us and tell us horror stories that he would just abuse people. And that's more being that's just your attitude, which is crazy. But I actually like the guy on film.
He's amazing on film, man. It was all about, for like a lot of you guys were incredible in that era. But the guys that really got bigger, who went to like the bigger budget movies, the movie theater, the ones that people who weren't even as into the martial arts films like me and my brother growing up, but just a little more mainstream, were like Van Damme and Seagal. And the interesting thing, what do both of those men have in common? Power. Just like Bruce Lee, just like you said what you like, just like what I love watching. Van Damme, boom, one sidekick, guy's out, doom. Whereas like, Jackie Chan kicked the dude 30 times. It's like a video game, man. you know. But Steven Skull, Van Damme, just boom, guy's done, power. That's beautiful on screen.
Yeah, it's just so obvious to us, but it's not obvious to directors or producers. And again, I did Blood Moon with Keith Sternberg, another movie. I co-produced that movie with him, and Darren Chevali's in it, and he's no longer with us. But God, what a great English fighter this guy was! He's been in a lot of movies. And then Gary Daniels, Chuck Jeffries, got the best stars money can buy, and you put him in there, and Gary goes, "I've hit this guy one scene like 30 kicks. He bounces back up." I said, "But can you just one time?" He wasn't asking for much. He says, "Can you ask the fight choreographer, director too? Can you just let me hit one person where he stays on the ground?" And I went up to Tony Leung. I've done movies with him before, and Tony's a great guy. That's when I said, "Tony, can you just have one scene? Can you create one, just one?" Man, he hits him, he goes down. We see Gary Daniels is powerful. He goes, "Nope, I'm not going to do it." I said, "Well, why not?" He goes, "Because all you care about is American audiences." He says, "The rest of the world likes the aesthetic beauty of the techniques. I'm only going to show the aesthetic beauty."
But the thing
Oh,
is,
wow.
Van Damme and Seagal, as big as they were in America, are probably actually, I would say, bigger internationally.
Right. Yeah, I think Tony was wrong. I think
Yeah,
he's totally wrong. Yeah. So
definitely.
many weird things like happened in my life. Like I said, I went to the film market and cons, and I went to a couple of them for different movies. So Keith Sternberg and I are there, and we saw Super Fights. So once Super Fights was sold, everybody's so excited. I went to NG and I said, "NG," now he owns seasonal films.
Mhm.
I said, "I didn't see any Chinese buyers. When's the Chinese buyers? Or do you handle that from Hong Kong yourself?" You know what he said? He started laughing. He goes, "We would never buy your films." I said, "What do you mean you wouldn't buy it? It's your film." He goes, "No, American films." He says, "Would you buy Chinese Westerns? Would you saw Chinese come in on a horse? Would you buy that Westerns?" I went, "No, we probably laugh." He goes, "That's how we do. We laugh at you Americans when we see you on film."
But Shanghai
And I was
Noon
like,
came out later with Jackie
right.
Chan.
And that was later.
Big hit.
Right. But can you believe he said that? I think he
Yeah,
just
that's
changed.
funny.
But at that time, I was like, I was insulted first, because believe it or not, he was wrong because when I did that Jackie Chan film, I'm with Young Bao. And I said, Young, how are they going to kill me off at the end of this film? He said something to me that nobody will believe, but I promise you, he told me this. He says, "Keith, you're so good with your long legs. The Hong Kong audience will not believe we can beat you. Jackie and I can beat you in Sambo." And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? It's a film. He said, "No, we have to kill you some other way." And that's why he takes a pot and hits me over the head at the end of the film to kill me.
Mm.
And he says, "Because they won't believe that we could beat you because you're too good." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then to hear you and G say, "Oh no, the Chinese will laugh at you," just like you'll laugh at Western with Chinese Westerns. And I kind of thought about him. Well, he's kind of right about that. If we saw a Chinese Western, we probably would laugh. I mean,
Mm.
it's just not what we're used to.
Right.
But for him to have that perspective about us, I was like, wow, I'm pretty insulted.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Brian, you got any last questions for Keith here?
But one day I'm gonna learn that sidekick from you, kid.
Oh,
Keith. Once I get my kicks back, I gotta stretch out. I can't get
Yeah,
my feet above my head.
I don't be facetious because a lot of things I can't do. I'm not a brain surgeon, but I've got a hell of a psychic, and I can teach it. I have some world champions, some students, and the whole bit. And the key is this: the psychic. And I always go in. Psychic stops the rain. Stops doesn't matter. You will just jump on me and beat the crap out of me. But no, oh, I'm sorry. You got the psychic. The psychic stops it all.
and you had mentioned Stephen Wonderboy Thompson earlier. He does that magnificently in the UFC. He's amazing with his
Yeah,
sidekick. So next
I used
time
to
we're in
train in his.
Atlanta, hmm,
Yeah, I used to train with his dad is Ray Thompson's.
yeah,
He's part of my organization. I used to do seminars when they were kids and the whole bit. I used to go to school and teach.
okay, yeah, and he described his sidekick in a video, which actually I think is your sidekick.
Yeah. And he's such a nice guy, so gifted. That whole organization is bigger than ever. And I saw one of my heroes down there is a guy named Jared. He's the guy that stars in the new movie that Chuck Norris used to be in, Walker. Well, this is Jared. He's the one who's the star of that movie. So I met him there at the fights, and he was there and knew of me and loved Wonder Boy. I said, "You came here from Austin, Texas, where you're filming the Walker series?" He said, "Yeah, I came here just to see Wonder Boy." And it was really funny. I mean, it was highlighted my time there because I watched Supernatural. Him and his brother were the stars of Supernatural for all those years. It's one of my favorite TV series.
Yeah, I like that show a lot. That was very cool. Oh, Antonio here. He says, "Thank you for such a great interview, Master Keith."
Oh, thank you. This has been pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Next time Brian and I are in Atlanta, by the way, we got to get that sidekick from you.
We might be
We'll
back
hang
down
out
there in
next time.
Decatur too. Maybe we can bring you over to Xavier's gym when we do. We might do another event down there, and you could do a little martial arts thing too. That'd be
Oh, that'd be
unbelievable because we
yeah.
do the
Yeah,
seminars first. The boxing legends do seminars, and then we go into the fights and stuff. We'd love to have you. You could show some stuff.
good. And one of the promoters is a guy named Dr. Robert Goldman. He'll be there in Atlantic City, so you'll see him, and you'll see 1,000 people that I know and say hi to him. And maybe I'll come out next year to it.
Oh, that'll be cool. Dr. Bob's great. I met him 2 years ago. Actually, I interviewed him on the channel. Great guy. And I've been texting him recently. So, we're looking forward to seeing each other again next week. And I'll introduce him to Brian. So, yeah, and I'll tell
Yeah,
him you said hi.
yeah. Tell him. Yeah, he just texted me yesterday because we go back and forth.
Yeah, he was just on that big meditation retreat in Thailand, which sounded
Yeah,
amazing.
guess what? We just got back from. He had an anti-aging event in Las Vegas for a week. I went to that.
Oh,
And I was
cool.
one of the guest speakers, and got up on stage and spoke. And he was actually in the film Battle Creek, Black Creek with us. He was in
Oh,
that
he was
same
in that.
scene with
Oh,
me
that's
and
cool.
Benny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. Can't wait till that movie comes out. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in this week. Again, thanks so much, Keith. And everybody check out his podcast, Sidekicks, linked in the description below.
All right, Brian,
Awesome.
thank you so
Thanks.
much. And David, this is
My
wonderful. What
pleasure.
a great experience. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we could do this for 2 more hours, but this is great. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're out.